Greetings and salutations, everybody. This is Jacob. Okay, so how the heck do we go about solving these problems? They seem confounding. Can't make heads or tails of them, you say. Worry not, my friends. I'll walk you through these problems like there's no tomorrow. You'll be running circles around these problems in no time. No one will leave this video scratching their heads. Oh no, not on my watch. Or maybe you've actually solved these problems and you want to check your solutions. Either way, let's get this show on the road, shall we? Well, the first of these problems is pretty easy. My usual catchphrases don't really apply to it. My friends, I'm sure you can solve this one in your sleep. Oh yes. So the answer to the first puzzle is pretty much you just add up the numbers that are given to you every 10 seconds, since the problem states that you have a normal memory, which means you can contain a sum in your working memory, even if it's a 4-digit number, but it would be pretty hard to keep track of 99 numbers, correct? So according to the sum of the first n numbers formula, which is n times n plus 1 over 2, then the sum of the first 100 numbers is 5050. So whatever sum comes up in the final answer, you subtract it from 5050 and you obtain your missing number, pretty much. Piece of cake. Oh yes. And you don't even have to remember all the 4 digits, only the last two. Because, for example, if the last 2 digits in your final sum are 50, then you know the final sum is 4,950 and the missing number is 100. And if the last 2 digits are 49, then the final sum is 5,049 and the missing number is 1. Piece of cake. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Oh yes. So now let's move on to the main event of the video, which is a bit more involved than this one, but nothing too hard, my friends. So the problem is asking us to solve the game here in question as depicted, which is a board game. 2 players take turns moving a coin on a squared board, and some squares are blotted out, as you see here. So the rules are you can only move the coin 1 square to the left, or 1 square upward, or 1 square diagonally to the left. And whoever moves the coin to the square marked end first wins the game. One of the players has a winning strategy. Which player is it, and what is their winning strategy? So how do we go about solving this problem? One way of solving this game is by working backward, marking every square if it's winning or if it's losing. In other words, if a square is marked W, then whoever has the turn and the coin is on that square, and that player is the winner. Likewise, if the coin is on a square marked L and a player has the turn, then that player is the loser. So far so good? So let's start marking from the 3 squares adjacent to the N square. These are W squares, obviously, since whoever is on the move on these squares can push the coin to the N square, correct? So moving on to the H7 square. The player on this square has only one legal move toward H8, correct? So is it a W square or a L square? It can't be a W square, because if it's a W square, then that means the winner is forced to concede his winning advantage to the other player, since it's the only legal move, which is a contradiction. The winning player isn't forced to concede his advantage, only if he makes a mistake. So it must be an L square, correct? So we mark it L. So moving on to the G7, H6, and G6 squares, none of these squares can be an L square. They're all W squares. Why is that, you ask? Because if one of them were an L square, then that means the player on the move on that square can reverse his or her losing disadvantage and play the coin to square H7, which is a contradiction. The loser can't reverse his losing status. If, for example, the L square were on G6, then the player on the move there could play to H7, and then the other player is the loser. So we mark these squares with W, and we move on. And by using this logic, slowly but surely, we mark all the squares on the board, carefully taking note of what the legal moves are. on each square, taking extra care near the blotted squares. c6, for example, the only legal move is toward d7, and on d4 the two legal moves are e4 and u5. So as you see here, now that the smoke has cleared, we now see the player who has the first move has a winning advantage, and his first move should be to place a coin on b1, and his subsequent play would be planned out according to what the second player plays, according to this map here. So that's all she wrote, my friends. That's your answer. Ooh, yes. So these were fun little puzzles, weren't they, my friends? Especially the last one. A refreshing change of pace. Expect more solve the game type of puzzles moving forward. They're quite fun. Various other types of puzzles that I haven't touched upon yet. Anagrams, for example, Sudokus, topological puzzles with shapes, gory knots and whatnot. Oh yes. Area mazes, another fantastic category of puzzles. Most of these puzzles I'll be putting in the logic category. I don't think they warrant their own category, my friends. But yeah, these puzzles today were a bit easier than the ones I usually do. I have to include some easier problems here and there, or else my viewers would flee from this channel like a bat out of hell. And it's perfectly fine to include easier puzzles here and there to let our intellectual hair down from time to time. So that's pretty much it. Comment down below what you think. If you like these puzzles, if you solved them another way, shoot a puzzle suggestion my way. I'll get to your suggestions eventually. That's pretty much it. Hit those buttons like there's no tomorrow. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.